Chris Stevens.
Well, thank you, Mr Gray. It's a pleasure to see a fellow Glaswegian in the chair, the centre of the universe, as you're aware, sir. And I want to thank the Honourable Member for Stockton South for presenting this debate on behalf of the Petitions Committee. And I certainly want to pay tribute to my colleagues for their fine speeches. It's been an excellent debate, I would say, but I think that the speeches from my good friends from Coatbridge, Christ and Bells Hill and North Ayrshire and Arran, I want to commend them for their excellent contributions. Now, I should probably declare, as others have in terms of their career, is that my first job when I was at school was working for the then supermarket chain Presto. And my first job, I was still at school, but I was one for Presto 2 evenings a night, and I was assigned to the paperware department. And for those of you who watching these proceedings who don't know what the paperware department is, that's the toilet rolls. Mr Gray, and my responsibility was to stack the shelves for the toilet rolls where I lived, and then obviously I moved up in my career when it was the soup tins and the rest. But some of the issues then apply as they do now, and I think we should start from the basic principle that no one should have to experience violence and abuse while doing their job. And certainly the Scottish National Party supports the effective legal protection of retail workers, and we're urging the UK Government to take action on this and to strengthen other workers' rights. Because retail workers carry out, as many honourable members have said in this debate, carry out an important role in serving the needs of our communities, and it's only right that they receive effective legal protection, which, as many colleagues have said, now is going to exist very shortly in Scotland. Because the Scottish Government not only supported the bill, which gives great protections in law to those retail workers, they are also assisting with a new awareness-raising campaign to highlight the impact of the abuse, threats and violence on retail staff. The campaign has been delivered by Crime Stoppers, Fearless and the Scottish Grocers Federation, and is backed by £50,000 of Scottish Government funding. And indeed, the British Retail Consortium and over 65 CEOs have written to the Prime Minister in February this year calling for legislation to make assaulting shop workers a separate offence in England and Wales. I really am staggered to see that the Government's first response to the petition on the 15th of September 2020 is that it was not persuaded that a specific offence is needed, as a wide range of offences already exist which cover assaults against any worker, including shop workers. Well, I hope the Minister will perhaps give us an indication as to why that's the case, because it certainly is not what's been said by many members in this debate. Verbal abuse and violence against any staff has been increasing for some time, and a British Retail Consortium survey finds that this is accelerated as a result of COVID safety measures, and it's now up to 455 incidents a day. Major triggers for these incidents, as we've heard from many colleagues in this debate, is challenging customers for identification or encountering shoplifters. The Scottish Grocers Federation crime survey last year indicated an increase in verbal or physical abuse in 2020 among the retail sector. Such appalling behaviour is completely unacceptable, and like everyone else, shop workers are fully entitled to be able to work free from the threat of violence or abuse. Now, Mr Gray, I've read the USDAW briefing, and I do think that it should be some of the evidence that's been presented to us by the trade union should be read out. And I just want to read out the presentation that's been given to us about what's happened in Scotland. And I think it will identify, the need as to why the legislation should have been, it was right that it should take place in Scotland, and why it should take place in the rest of the United Kingdom. Workers in central Scotland. I challenged a customer under Think25. He threw his shopping at me and tried to grab me. Another worker punched in the back when filling the shelves by a customer, just to ask me if I am busy. Verbal abuse. USDAW members in Glasgow. Customer swore at me and hit me with a sandwich. The abuse I received varies from comments, and I won't say some of the words, but again, more verbal abuse. Finger pointing in the face and being poked at with the finger. Customers trying to punch me on the body. Members in Highlands and Islands asking politely to keep a 2 metre distance was met with verbal abuse and to get on with their work. People throwing money at retail workers. Verbal abuse, mainly from people influenced by drugs and alcohol. Usdaw members in Lothian, people get stroppy about wearing face coverings. Customers have called me an idiot for asking for identification. Sexual assault on workers in the retail sector, Mr Gray. Usdaw members in Mid-Scotland and Fife. Customers take their frustration out on staff being verbally abusive for no reason and treating us like dirt. Threats, coughing in my face, rants of having to wait in a queue. Usdaw members in the north east of Scotland. Shoplifters angry at being challenged, an attempted armed robbery, verbal abuse from shoplifters, verbal abuse from intoxicated customers and verbal abuse from people who have been asked for ID. Usdaw members in the south of Scotland. COVID-related abuse about social distancing and queues at checkouts. Get verbal abuse asking for ID. Customers being nasty, shouting in front of the rest of the queue and shouting abuse when carrying out Challenge 25. And finally, Usdaw members in the west of Scotland. Drunk people unable to accept service refusal, usually verbal, being spat at and threats. When politely explaining a refund policy, some people get very abusive when they find out they cannot exchange without a receipt. Now, Mr Gray, if people think that there should only be law in Scotland and that what I've read out there is testimony from Usdaw workers in Scotland, doesn't apply in the rest of the United Kingdom, then I've got magic beans to sell. Because it's quite clear that this legislation should be introduced across the United Kingdom, and I hope the government will do that. But there's a thread here, I think, Mr Gray, which is of concern to me, and that is the UK government's failure to deliver. As the Honourable Member for Easington, I think, quite rightly pointed out, where is the workers' protections since COVID and as a result of COVID? Where is the employment bill that was in the last two Queen's speeches, Mr Gray, as a result of the Taylor report that should deal with exploitative contracts, a feature in the retail sector? Or short-term shift changes, which is a feature of the retail sector. Where is the bill to ban fire and rehire, as proposed by my honourable friend in Renfrewshire North? Again, a feature in the retail sector. It's not there. And I have a real concern, as the Honourable Member for Easington quite rightly pointed out, that this government are giving platitudes in one hand and not delivering protections and legislation on the other. If we are to build a fairer society, Mr Gray, it needs to enhance and protect the hard-fought workers' rights. And frankly, if the UK government won't provide those employment rights, it should devolve the responsibility to the Scottish Parliament, and the Scottish Parliament will ensure that it will. Thank you.